This video is sponsored by Dubby Jitterless Energy Blend. Click on the link in the description and use the code PackerMan to save 10% on any order.
This race had so much potential. We were looking at a Daytona 500 Classic, and that finish turned it into a pile of shit. Let's get into it. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of The Fuel, where today we are going to be talking about and reviewing the 65th running of the Daytona 500. Let me tell you something, man. This race had all the makings of a classic Daytona 500. We had the third most lead changes of all time in the Daytona 500, as this cat likes to mess around. We had the third most lead changes ever in the Daytona 500. It was a super competitive race. We had a great battle shaping up at the end between the RFK cars and the RCR cars, and it was shaping up to be a classic. And then those two overtime periods happened, and we're going to be getting into all that. But first of all, one of the major criticisms that I had, and a lot of people have had this as well, the sheer number of commercials during this race. Okay, Fox and NBC need to realize this is not fucking 2010 anymore, okay? People are not going to sit through a bunch of fucking commercials to watch a race anymore. Okay, times have changed, and it's time to get with the program, because this running commercials every 5 fucking minutes bullshit, it's going to end up driving people away, and you're going to end up losing money over it, okay? Enough with the fucking commercials, and some of them are fucking stupid anyways. So, enough with that shit, okay? I'm honestly willing to pay money for a goddamn NASCAR streaming service at this point, if I don't have to watch stupid ass commercials like I see every week, like the fucking Coke Zero commercial. I need to try it first. Yeah. Fuck off. Okay? I'm tired of that shit. But anyway, just wanted to get that off my chest. But not really much in the way of news this week, other than one thing that we'll get to during the race review. So let's go ahead and get into the race review, shall we? So this is your race review of the 65th running of the Daytona 500. I guess it's little wonder why Rick Hendrick has extended his contract. Yes, that is correct. Alex Bowman has signed a multi-year contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports, meaning that he will be in the 48 car for the foreseeable future. I even got a top 5 out of the deal, if I am correct in assuming here. Yep, looks like he finished 5th. So in addition to qualifying on the pole, he finally got a decent finish out of the 500 this time around. Usually he gets taken out in one way or another, and he ends up with a top 5, so pretty good run there. But the lead changes started fast and furious in this race. Kind of a roulette wheel with the lead change counter. About half the field kicked off green flag stops on lap 108. Logano cycled back with the lead afterwards. We had some more lead changes, and then we had our first caution on lap 118. Once everything got back going again, lead changed hands a couple more times, and Chastain. And I'm thinking, if we have this at the end of the race, this is going to be a classic. Unfortunately, that would not be the case, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And then we had our second caution on lap 140 when once they got back going again, Chris Buescher and Eric Almirola swapped the lead back and forth, a total of 5 times between them in 10 laps. So the two were just going back and forth with the race lead. There was a bit of a lull in the action midway through the third stage, but everybody was pretty much setting up for the final run to the finish. The leaders pit with 24 laps to go, and Harrison Burton. So this happened a little bit late in the race, but then we got back underway, and Dillon gets to the race lead, but then, and that is when the wheels completely fall off of this race. We would go into overtime, but as it would turn out, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was just barely ahead at the finish, and he wins the Daytona 500 for just his third career win. So an extremely shitty finish to what was shaping up to be a classic Daytona 500. If this race would have gone green and we would have got the finish we should have gotten, I would have easily, very easily, given this race probably a high 8 or maybe even a 9. I would have probably given this race a 9. Obviously, because of this crap finish, I'm not going to give it that now. And as for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., you know, Bob Pockris on Twitter asked, would this Daytona 500 win silence a lot of Ricky Stenhouse's critics? No. It's not going to silence his critics because the only type of track he's ever won on is super speedways, okay? I'm sorry, but I don't find that to be very fucking impressive, okay? I would put more stock into Eric Jones's 3 wins than Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 3 wins. Why? Because yes, even though Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has 2 wins at Daytona, let's be completely honest here. Any yahoo can win a fucking super speedway race. Okay? It's basically like Russian roulette, and it was Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s turn. Is he good at super speedways? Yeah, but the problem is, he's not really all that fucking good anywhere else. Maybe Bristol, but that's about it. And that's the huge problem. Outside of Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta, perhaps, he's going to be a non-factor. Now, can he change my perception? Of course he can. But if he wants to back up his victory in the Daytona 500, he has got to start running up front. I know he's in a JTG Daugherty car, but he doesn't have that excuse anymore. When you have teams that are just in their second or third season, like 2311 Racing and Trackhouse Racing, and they have become super powerhouses in just their second and third season, that whole, well, it's JTG Daugherty Racing, that excuse is out the window. Okay? I'm not buying that excuse anymore. Okay? He has got to produce on the other types of tracks. Okay? If he wins on another track other than a super speedway, then maybe I would put some more stock into his ability as a driver. Okay? I'm not going to apologize for telling it like it is. I'm sorry to you Ricky Stenhouse fans, but I'm not going to apologize for telling it like it is. And like I said, I'm going to put more stock in Eric Jones's victories because while one of his victories was at Daytona, you know where his other 2 wins were? The Southern 500. He's won the Southern 500 twice at the Darlington Raceway, probably the most difficult track in NASCAR to win on. So I would put more stock into Eric Jones's victories than into Stenhouse's victories. And Stenhouse, he still needs to clean up his racing a little bit. I mean, was he clean in the Daytona 500? Absolutely he was. I will give him credit where credit is due there. But if he wants to prove that he is a legit championship contender this year, he has got to produce on the other types of tracks. And that is just the bottom line. But as for my final thoughts on this race, I shake my head because, we had 52 overall lead changes in this race. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers here. We had 52 overall lead changes in this race. 33 of those were pure lead changes. Over 11,000 green flag passes. That's an over 60. That averages over 60 per lap. That's insanity. And yeah, we had the 6 cautions, but for the most part, it was a fairly clean affair right up until the finish. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Maybe it's time we need to abolish this overtime rule. Because, especially on the super speedways. Because, without those 2 overtimes, we wouldn't have half the field fucking wrecked. And costing these teams hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, and this is not, and that's the other thing. This is not, a one-time occurrence. Well, just people are starting to talk about it because it was this race. No, it's been happening every other fucking super speedway race. It seems like every other super speedway race we have some bullshit wreck at the end, and it just completely ruins the entire thing. And I'm over that shit. I'm done with it. I'm done with this overtime bullshit. It's time to get rid of it. I'm sorry. I'm done with the green-white checkered shit. If it ends under caution, so be it. That's just how it is. And that's how I feel about that. But yeah, this was shaping up to be a classic, and because of how fucking stupid the finish was, it's lucky to even get an above average score out of me. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. So, my final rating for the 65th running of the Daytona 500 is a 6 out of 10.
What's happening, ladies and germs? Thank you for watching tonight's video. If you're interested in sponsoring the channel, there is a link to my Patreon down in the description box below. Otherwise, hit like and subscribe if you want to continue watching great content like you saw today. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out.